So what's up guys, my name's Ash and welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video guys, we've got some custom tactics and player instructions for the 5-4-1 formation. But just before we get started guys, as always, I would very much appreciate it if you could drop this a thumbs up, as it does really help me out. If you want some coins for the new level up promo, make sure you check out MMOXP.com. Their link is down in the description. They're very fast, they're very cheap, they're very reliable, and if you use my code Rema, you can get yourself a nice 5% extra discount. Okay guys, so starting off with today's custom tactics, for the defensive style, I like to have this on balanced. Now the reason we have this on balanced is because it does give us the best control over our defense. So when we need to press our opponent, we can do that, and then when we want to drop back, be a little bit more passive, we are also able to do that. So it does give us the very much needed control that the other settings might not give us. Moving on to the width guys, for the defense I have this on 34. The reason for this is so we can primarily defend in a nice narrow and compact shape, which will stop our opponents being able to run through us right through the middle, and it doesn't leave as many gaps in the defense. The reason we don't commit to an even lower width though is because it's still important to maintain some of the natural width of the formation to cover the wider areas in case an opponent tries an attack down the wing. Moving on to the depth guys, I have this on 66. The reason for this is it allows us to win the ball a bit higher up the pitch and prevents us from getting pinned back all the time, but at the same time the defensive line isn't too high to the point where we're always getting through balled. Now if this depth feels a little bit too high for you, you can obviously lower this, but I'm just not a big fan, as I don't like being pinned back in my own box all of the time, which is why I like to up it to 66. Now moving on to the build-up play guys, I have this on balance. This is because I find it to be the most consistent and varied form of build-up. When you have this on balance, you can pick and choose when and where you use each style of build-up in the attack. So for example, you could decide you want to play a little bit slowly, and then you just switch it up to be a little bit faster. But for example, if you use slow build-up, you always have to build up slowly. You can't randomly decide to play a little bit faster. The same way is if you use fast build-up, you always have to play quickly. You can't decide to randomly slow down, which is why I like balance, as it does give you the control and the variety. Now moving on to chance creation guys, I have this on direct passing. The reason for this is direct passing is by far the most meta option in the game. Basically your attacking players will bunch up against the opposition defenders, so you're able to do the super overpowered 1v1 plays. Basically makes it very easy to create those chances, and players will also make those extra movements in the box so you can get off the extra pass to guarantee the goals. Direct passing is super important in my opinion. Moving on to the attacking width guys, I have this on 47. The reason for this is I don't like having the width crazy low, otherwise it just feels like your players are way too close together, and I also don't like having the width too high, otherwise it feels like your team's just too far apart. So I kind of like to go for something in between, where it's neither too narrow or too wide. Moving on to players in box, we have this on 3, so we do get a few players into the box for those chances, but we don't overcommit everybody to the point where we're always getting counter attacked. And as for corners and free kicks guys, I have these both on 1 because there is a set piece routine that I use which requires these to be on 1. There is a link to that in the top right hand corner of the screen. Now moving on to the types of players you can use guys, I'm just going to give some suggestions because a lot of people ask which types of players they can use in each position for certain formations. So I'm just going to give you a basic guideline that I follow, but it's completely up to you whether or not you use those types of players in the position. So starting off with the striker guys, if you can, it's nice to get a nice well-rounded player. The reason for this is it's obviously a one striker formation, so you have to compensate for the fact that there is only one striker instead of 2. So where you could get a bit of a balance between 2 strikers by having one creative player and then an out-and-out finisher next to him, you kind of have to get that all in one player in a one striker formation. So I would suggest somebody that has a decent creative ability, decent finishing ability, somebody that could shoot on either foot, somebody that has a bit of pace and physicality, basically a player that can do a bit of everything, as it does make your attack a lot more varied in my opinion. Now moving on to the right mid and left mid guys, you can pretty much use whoever you want, but I do suggest really good attacking players, preferably ones with good pace and dribbling as well as decent shooting. The reason for this is these players don't actually have to defend all that much, so you really don't have to worry about those defensive stats. So you can pretty much get away with using any attackers that you want. Obviously wingers are probably more preferred in these positions as they are slightly wider, but it is completely up to you who you use there. Now moving on to the left centre mid guys, I like to use a more defensive minded player. This is somebody that will stay back at all times, so I would suggest somebody with a medium high work rate rate if you can get it, is you get that maximum contribution in the defense and they are not too bothered about going forward. But I like to implement at least one defensive minded player in this midfield. Moving on to the right centre mid, guys, I like to balance it out with a more box to box style player. This is somebody that will attack and defend, so somebody with a high work rate is great here, as you get that maximum contribution in the attack and the defense, but just ensure that this player's got a nice well-rounded card. Moving on to the wing backs, guys, you can pretty much use whoever you want in the wing back positions. What some people like to do is use two actual fullbacks in the wing back position, so they're defensively sound. Some people like to use two actual wingers in both wing back positions to make them really good offensively, and what I like to do is go for one actual fullback in one of the wing back positions and then go for a winger in the other position, just for a bit of a balance, but it's completely up to you what you do with those players. As for the three centre backs, guys, pretty much yeah, these just need to be full meta players. The fast players, medium high work rate is preferred, good defensive animation choices, basically, you know, the types of players you want to be using in defence. You could also maybe use a fullback in one of the centre back positions if you would like to. As for the goalkeeper, guys, really doesn't matter, use whoever you want. Now moving on to the player instructions, guys, on the striker I have him on stay central and mixed attack. The reason we have him on stay central is because he is our striker, so we don't want him drifting off into those wide areas all the time. We do want him to be in those central areas where the striker should be. We also have him on mixed attack as opposed to getting behind, as I feel like you get a lot more out of the striker this way. They make more versatile movements, more dynamic runs, and it just seems to be a bit easier to attack. Getting behind seems to make your attack very predictable because they're always making the same runs, which can get you in trouble against the top opponent, which is why I do prefer mixed attack, but feel free to use getting behind if you would prefer. Now moving on to the right mid and the left mid, guys, we have them on come back on defense, cut inside and getting behind. We have them on come back on defense, so we always ensure that they keep a good defensive shape when we don't have the ball. They can get a little bit lazy, especially if they have bad work rates on basic defensive support and not really do too much for you, so you want them on come back on defense so you do keep a nice compact shape. We also have them on cut inside, so they always look to make those narrow runs inwards to help out the striker and give him a bit of support. You'll see what we do with the wing backs to help this out even more. And we also have them on the getting behind instruction, so they're always looking to make those darting runs to really trouble your opponent. So left mid and right mid, come back on defense, cut inside and getting behind. Now for both the right centre mid and the left centre mid, although they're kind of different types of roles, different types of players, I have them both on stay back while attacking and cover centre. We have them on stay back while attacking, so they're always back by default, so we're always in a nice defensive shape and we don't overcommit too many men forward. But for example, with my more box to box style player, when I want to send him forward, I'll just manually send him forward with a run. If this doesn't feel authentic enough for you though, you can put him on balanced attack, but the most important thing is that we do have them on cover centre, so they do defend those central areas. Now moving on to the wing backs, guys, these players are going to add the main amount of the main width to the team. Their primary role is to make the overlapping runs to add width, so we have them on join the attack and overlap, so they always join the attack and help us out there. And we have them on the overlap run type, so they actually make the overlapping runs to add extra width as opposed to run narrow. This goes hand in hand with the instruction we've got on the left mid and the right mid, where they cut inside into those more narrow areas, leaving space for these wing backs to overlap and add width. So we've got good width and good narrow players at the same time. As for the three centre backs, guys, and the goalkeeper, these are on the default settings and I do not touch them. But yeah, they're my custom tactics and player instructions for the 5-4-1. If you have enjoyed or found it useful, please be sure to drop this a like, sub to the channel if you are new, and don't forget to turn on notifications. And with all that aside, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.